Welcome to a special edition of the Sudo Show. Just a quick introduction before we dive into the show. And don't worry, Bill and Neil will be back in the next episode. In this episode, Kevin Carter of Rackspace joined me to have a conversation about OpenStack. This was recorded about a week before the Open Infra Summit in South Korea. I've been wanting to have a conversation about OpenStack for some time, so I'm glad we were able to do this. A little about Kevin. Kevin is currently a product director for OpenStack solutions at Rackspace. Before that, he held various engineering roles focused on OpenStack at both Rackspace and Red Hat, two of the largest contributors to OpenStack. He is also presented at Open Infrastructure Summit, so if you're interested, go check out his talks. We discuss the evolution of OpenStack since it was created, the surge of interest between 2012 and 2016, the waning period of OpenStack, and why it is making a resurgence in 2024. So here is Sudo Show episode 71, OpenStack Renaissance. Welcome to the Sudo Show, where business meets open source. Today, Kevin Carter from Rackspace is joining me to discuss OpenStack and its resurgence of interest in our industry. Kevin, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Brandon, thanks for having me. This is good stuff. So again, I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. So Kevin, I will have done a short intro at the beginning of the podcast, but just in your own words, can you just introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. So my name is Kevin Carter. I'm the product director for the OpenStack IBU. We call it an IBU because it's our integrated business unit, but all of our OpenStack solutions. I just came back to Rackspace about a year ago to come in and help lead the charge in this resurgence back into open source, OpenStack, and contributing into upstream and everything else that we're working.
I know most of our listeners will likely know what OpenStack is because I've ranted, raved, whichever, here and there. But most of our listeners will likely know what OpenStack is, given our audience our audience tends to be very technical. But just for those who may not know what OpenStack is, though they may know from my ranting and raving about it, both good and bad. Can you just give us the elevator pitch?
Yeah, OpenStack it's an open source resource manager, right? And so whether you're dealing with hypervisors at scale or bare metal, containers, block storage, object storage, load balancers, like all of these different systems all come into play as under the OpenStack umbrella. And so when I try to describe OpenStack to people who may not be plugged into what it does and what it is that it is a resource manager. And so it's not a monolithic tool, right? It's not like this, the hammer that has all of these crazy widgets hanging off the side of it. It is a collection of projects that all literally come together under that OpenStack umbrella. And so, we've got Neutron for networking and Nova for virtualization and compute, and you've got Ironic for bare metal and Magnum for containers. And again, all of these things come together under that OpenStack brand to present that unified experience for managing your resources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've described it as, I haven't described it as a resource manager. I've described it as a data center framework.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah. It's a platform, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably a better way of describing it, though, is as a resource manager, data center resource manager, cloud resource manager.
Yeah, I try to think about where people are coming from, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people who are coming out of the VMware space.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming from the hyperscalers, and so they're just like, I don't necessarily need to know about the underlying kernel that you're running and the instruction sets that are available to my instances. I just need to manage resources.
Yeah.
And so, I'm not trying to dumb it down, just trying to distill the information, if you will. Yeah.
Got it. So how did you get involved in the OpenStack project? I know you've been involved in this in the OpenStack community for going on just over a decade.
For a minute, a couple of minutes. Yeah.
So, what components have you worked on over the years? What, and also, what have you been working on recently?
Yeah. So over the years, well, okay, we'll start at the beginning, right? In the beginning. I came to Rackspace. Actually, I'm from California, and I moved to Texas to pursue some job opportunities out here. And I came to Rackspace because of what they were doing with the ANSO Labs, NASA folks, right?
Mhm,
With the OpenStack ecosystem, and that
mhm.
was in 2011. So OpenStack had already been created. It had been, announced to the world that it was happening, and that collaboration was well underway. But it wasn't until 2012 that our the Rackspace public cloud was launched, and that's really where my interest peaked and started. Well, I won't say peaked. It's where it started because we were doing new and different and exciting things. And I honestly started off my career in the OpenStack space as an administrator, like troubleshooting problems and resolving issues with hypervisors and coming up with creative solutions to migrate workloads and manage things long before live migration was a real thing, or
Mhm.
a lot of the tools that people know and love today were even invented. And so we were, building a lot of that stuff. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, this was like DevOps before DevOps was DevOps,
yeah,
right?
and like just to put it into perspective, pretty sure that was before Neutron was even part of
Totally.
the
Yeah.
OpenStack
Yeah. It was
project.
Nova Network was our go to. Yeah, that's where it started. Stuff I've contributed to a lot of different projects within the OpenStack space over the years. But I think my number one contribution was to the OpenStack Ansible project, which was the deployment model and method that we created within Rackspace and then open sourced. We did that at the Paris OpenStack Summit, and I served as the PTL of that project for a number of years, and then pivoted to actually pass the torch to someone else. I was like, "Here, hold this." But but it was a good experience, right? I didn't step back from being a contributor, but I wanted other people to have that experience as being the technical lead of some of these projects, and not just be that you know monolithic. Oh, that's the Rackspace project. I'm like, no, 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 no. We need more people to come in. We need the city networks and the BBCs and the Comcast and everybody to contribute if we want this thing to be successful. And so early on, we passed that torch off.
Yeah, the early days, lots of companies were contributing back then.
Totally.
Not it wasn't just the way I put it is today is if you look at the contributions, it's basically the Red Hat Rackspace project now.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah. I mean, and more power to the Red Hat has really carried the torch in a lot of ways for a ton of the project efforts and the lifts and everything else. And really exciting the new announcement for y'all coming out with
Yeah,
the new product stuff. So that's an exciting opportunity, and I think
yeah,
it really is playing well into the general OpenStack market, right? Showing you have Mirantis coming back and becoming a sponsor. You have
mhm,
continued commitment out of Red Hat and a new product release coming out. And,
yeah.
to not be overly salesy, Rackspace coming back with our own product
That's
release
true.
and announcements. So
Yeah,
it's been good.
yeah. We'll get into both of those later, I'm sure. One of the things I've been wanting to explore in this conversation is like this is I kind of say this is the second, maybe third, like huge uptick of OpenStack interest.
Yeah,
There's the first wave, which was around 2011, 2012. The next wave, which was more of a telco focus
sure.
around 2015, 2016. And then now,
Yeah.
this current iteration of this resurgence, I would like to blame Broadcom, but who
Sure.
doesn't,
Sure. Sure. Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Uh,
It's a gift. It's a
yeah,
gift.
yeah, in a way. But
Yeah.
anyway, to I know it's that I've gone through two of these instances where VMware's either increased their prices, changed their model, but it never really moved the needle to
Yeah.
changed market share, right? That nothing really changed. Like you had a couple of enterprises make big splashes. Oh, we moved to OpenStack. We moved to something else. This time, it feels different, but it's not just related to VMware. I mean, we had news yesterday in the Register about Geico moving to OpenStack from VMware. And though VMware is a factor, I think this renaissance of OpenStack seems to be disconnected from this. Like whether if that's cloud repatriation,
Sure.
I think it could be more related to cloud repatriation than to VMware hiking their prices. But I wanted to get your perspective on that.
I agree. It's not so. Well, I can only give you my own journey, and so we'll talk about that. But I came back to Rackspace about this time last year, under the Josh Villarreal, who's my manager. He oversees the general management of our collective OpenStack business unit, and so basically, what was happening at that time was that they had seen OpenStack being a market driver, like not only for the enterprise space, but also in their public cloud space, and trying to figure out where that was going. But at Rackspace, those were two different business units, right? So they worked tangentially together. They didn't necessarily work together, and so they were all unified under Josh, and they were brought in so that they could, to change, the landscape of what they were doing, and be create a more unified application stream. And so this was happening before the Broadcom acquisition Broadcom, I believe at that time had been acquired, and there was rumblings about what was coming down the pipe, but there wasn't none of the big price hike stuff had happened. None of the, the fire drill, was going on at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was, we were already seeing the effect of OpenStack becoming more, I guess, in vogue again, right? Becoming more prevalent in the space, and people asking for it by name, like, hey, I need an OpenStack solution. Like they weren't coming and saying, I need, an X solution. They were asking for OpenStack by name. And so anyways, my journey came back into Rackspace because, Josh and I were in contact, and he was like, hey, I would like you to come and help us with the product strategy and build out this unified roadmap for what is to become what we're calling our one OpenStack strategy. But we were trying to build that out so that customers could use that strategy. And so I agree. I think there's a really big push into the open source OpenStack space, and I think sure we can blame Broadcom with the whole VMware acquisition for becoming or creating a disruption, but I think the undertones of cloud repatriation were really the driver there. And if you look at across the landscape, you see guys like David Hansen, right, DHH from Hey, talking about how inexpensive servers are and how capable they are, right? Whether you want to run, RHEL, or you want to run, OpenStack, or you want to run just like native virtualization of some sort to carve up and segment your resources. The hardware is infinitely more capable than it was, 10 years ago, and so the density you can get out of a single server is massive. And you can rent servers from colocation facilities for a couple $100 a month, right? Versus you could buy one single VM that is not even the breadth and scope and scale of that server, but is that single compute resource for twice, three times, sometimes four times the price. And it balloons from there once you get into the world of accelerators, right?
Yeah, it's easy to spend $700 a month on a single instance. Yeah. And one of my local host data center providers here in Salt Lake City offers a full rack.
Yeah.
With power,
probably about 10 terabytes of egress,
not even more than that.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Like have your own circuit for $700 a month.
So I think that's really the driver. I think that's the motivation, right? And so we see that in the enterprise space where customers are coming in and saying, we want to buy a row of servers, and we would like you to manage those resources.
Mm-hmm.
And we would like you to do it with OpenStack, so we don't have any of those vendor lock-in things. So I agree. I think the repatriation movements, the uh, hardware density that we're getting at scale, like that,
Mhm.
the commodity of scale, right, is
Yeah.
really hitting a level that we haven't seen before.
Yeah. When you can get 128 cores
Yeah.
on a single CPU, it's really easy to get the density
Yeah.
out of a single server,
Yeah.
even a 1U box, right?
You can get it. Actually, I was watching a video the other day about Flex 170 graphics cards out of Intel, and you can't like get buying them is hard, but you can buy super micro pizza boxes, 1U pizza box servers that come with one, and you're like, all right, well, what's under the hood? It's like 48 cores, a terabyte of RAM, and a GPU that has SRIOV enabled by default, right?
Mhm.
You're like, uh, uh, how much is that? A grand, I mean, maybe you spend 4 or 5 grand, you upgrade the NICs or whatever. Like that, if you were to carve that up and figure out what the resource cost would be on cloud instances that did a similar thing, I mean, you're spending tens of thousands of dollars a month versus a
Mhm.
one-time spend. Maybe you do some drive replacements over the next 5 to 10 years, but a one-time spend of 5 grand pays for itself in a month.
Yeah, it pays for itself really quick.
Yeah,
Really quick. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing that with some SaaS companies, even 37 signals may not be like the best case study, but just given their scale. But even then, like you don't need this massive scale for public cloud, even for uh, yeah, especially for a smaller SaaS organization. You just don't need it.
you don't, and well, and like I said, like the density is incredible now. Like,
Mhm.
stock standard 1U servers, like, or even two, right? You get what 22 in a rack,
Mhm.
128 logical cores across each box, a terabyte and a half of RAM. Like, price that out on any one of the hyperscalers, and
Yeah,
and it's going to make your bank
if
cry.
yeah, whether if it's a VM or a bare metal offering.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad to see where one mind here.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah. Yeah.
I wasn't really like some people keep blaming it on the price hike from VMware, and I'm like, there's something different about this one. It's not the same as it was when VMware introduced VRAM pricing, for example.
No. No.
It's not the same at all.
It's not. No, it's not the same. And I mean, I think the Broadcom disruption is something that folks are talking about because, uh, well, because there's a lot to talk about. But it's not. But it's not. It's not really the driver. Like VMware actually is an incredibly good product, and there's a lot of workloads that need it, right?
Hmm.
Like that are only certified on it. And
Yeah.
so, like here I am. I have an OpenStack flag behind me, like I can tell like VMware is a good thing and people should use it for where it's good to be used. And but it's so it's not like this isn't the end of that initiative and what they're doing. It's really people are looking around because there's also a lot of commodity workloads that don't need it. And open source in general, not just OpenStack, can provide you an enterprise capability without having to pay through the nose for it.
You're obviously working with some really large organizations, being at Rackspace. Like, what's been the migrations? Like, what workloads are they targeting? Is it just their web servers, something that's easy to like just move? Are they moving their giant,
Kind of all of the above.
giant Postgres databases or whatever? Like, is it and also what does it look like from what does the migration look like for them?
It really is kind of all of the above. Like, and because sometimes they have that giant Postgres database, or maybe they're running like an Oracle DB workload, or Microsoft SQL. Like moving those things, not necessarily straightforward. It's kind of like one of those like it's not broke, don't fix it.
Hmm.
Um, so but I mean people are moving workloads like that over, right? And so what does that look like? It's really kind of one of those core tenets of what OpenStack does really well, and that is you know there's a lot of most customers aren't using a lot of the advanced features in networking solutions that are available today. They're like it's largely L2 networks, provider style networks, VLANs, etc. And so they're, when OpenStack comes in, we can do a provider like network, make it so that they can push workloads over into their adjacent OpenStack cluster and connect back into with the workloads that are harder to move, and they can circle back on and spend more than a two week dev sprint to figure out how to get off of this thing, right? And so they are moving a lot of workloads, and it's just kind of all of. I don't have like a this is the one that's moving,
Yeah.
because I do see it a lot moving just across the board, just in general, right? It could be that they are running into issues. Like the core count problem is really what they're like. I have an 8 core machine. Like I'm paying for 16 now. I need to evacuate this device. I'm going to push those workloads over there. Or maybe they're running, like you said, the web servers, and they're really easy, totally stateless, and they just push everything over there, and everything's fine, right? And they don't have to worry about it too much. Um, but yeah, there's other storage capabilities that we can bring to bear inside of the OpenStack environment, and so sometimes those are enticing, like an HA block storage solution, or a real super high performance fiber channel style solution, and they just like, well, it'll perform better after our testing, and so they're moving those, even though those bigger volume type workloads may take longer to move. I see a lot of migrations happening with like partner integration stuff, so like cloud-based solutions with
Mhm.
Coriolis, they're using those kinds of tools to be able to migrate from cloud X to cloud Y, be it a VMware or an AWS or whatever, and that target happens to be OpenStack. And then in terms of the underlying bits and bobs for customers who have a pretty good DevOps or dev lifecycle practice area, they're using things like Terraform, and because OpenStack is an open API and those modules already work with the cloud, they simply target the new environment, and one spins down here, one spins up there, and nobody's really the wiser.
Yeah.
That's a rambly way of saying it's kind of all of the above.
Yeah. No, that's totally fine. Yeah, I probably would have given a similar answer, just as rambly, maybe even more. But so actually, this brings me to another question that I had written down, but I wasn't sure if I was going to ask. Like, do you think that's one of the what you just said, using Terraform or using something similar that looks similar to like a cloud formation, so heat templates and stuff. Do you think that public cloud repatriation is a deciding factor to implement OpenStack, to make that transition easier, so that your private cloud now acts and smells just like a public cloud? And if you enable the AWS compatible APIs, I mean, you don't even need to change anything with your your workflows, quite frankly. But do you think that's a big part of why people are now looking at OpenStack again?
I don't think so, actually.
Okay.
I think it's an enabler, but I don't think that's a reason why they're looking at it. Uh, I think once they figure out, or once they're coming to the conclusion that they don't want to be running in some of these hyperscaler spaces any longer, and
Mhm.
deciding that they're going to push that workload into either their own data centers or a co-location facility, or et cetera, and build out their own capabilities there, similar to like what Geico is doing, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then they discover along the way, after having made that kind of top level decision, like, oh, all my tools actually already work here. This is better than I thought it was. But I don't think that the tools are driving the change. Uh,
Got it.
yeah, because
Yeah.
yeah, like the Ansible tools, right? The Terraform tools, a lot of the Knative tools, right? They may not necessarily support OpenStack itself. They support the adjacent platforms, be it infrastructure or an application running in Kubernetes of some sort. So maybe they just have to do that, like that first step of how they get those resources provisioned. And so that's some development work that they have to take on, but their actual application they're running their business on already has automation that targets a Knative API and workload space. So they're just like, oh, okay, I can provision those resources, I can create those cloud environments and experiences, and my business logic that I depend on already just works. like despite of OpenStack, right?
Mhm.
OpenStack is simply the resource manager.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great answer there.
Yeah.
Lately, there's been a lot of great announcements around OpenStack. Next, believe it's next week is Open Infrastructure Summit. I'm sure
That's
there's
right.
going to be tons of great things being announced from whether that's Rackspace, Red Hat. I'm sure others will have great announcements around OpenStack products and organizations, whether that be an organization like Geico or someone else announcing what they're doing with it. Yeah, if you're willing and able, Rackspace has been offering various OpenStack products for over a decade.
Yep.
What's the what are you guys doing in the from a product perspective at Rackspace?
Yeah. So, I mean, we just had our own product announcement just a couple weeks back for the OpenStack Enterprise product release, right? And so, this is really the foundational component of what we will be announcing throughout the next couple of months on an entire product portfolio and roadmap. And so, what Enterprise is the ability for us to manage, operate, and build, operate, and potentially even transfer OpenStack clouds into customer spaces, and that it is the announcement that is effectively letting people know about our what I was mentioning before, our one OpenStack strategy. And so what we're doing with that is that we're creating a single application lifecycle and management and chain for all of our OpenStack products. And I can't talk about some of the releases that we have in the pipeline, but the OpenStack Enterprise is, like I said, is that foundational release that we're coming back into the market with, letting the market know that not only is OpenStack, relevant at Rackspace and has been for a very, very long time, but we have new products built in and around it, and we're building on top of that. I think one of the terms that I internally we've been circulating is that we're taking our private cloud and making it public. So everything that we're doing private cloud wise is being pushed into the into the public domain.
Let me make sure I understood that correctly.
Sure, yeah.
So basically, you guys are going to be offering like a full managed solution, right? Whether for on-premise OpenStack or
That's
anything
correct.
managed within a Rackspace data center.
That's correct. Yeah, yeah. We will manage a remote, what we call a CDC, a customer data center environment, right? Or a Rackspace data center environment, and we'll do it the same way across both of them. And then outside of that, we have some future products planned where it will give you some mobility across those different product types for our just out of our enterprise space.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
I'm foreshadowing so that you can bring me back on the show and we could talk more.
I think that'll be definitely something we would want to do.
Yeah, this is our first announcement in a really long time with OpenStack, and I mean, there's been questions, like do you still do OpenStack? And the answer is we never stopped doing OpenStack, but we're definitely talking about it at this point.
Yeah, talking about it more.
Yeah, it's trying to and just being more present, right? I think there has been a time where we were not a part of the conversation, right? It was just not we had our own things going on and we were doing our own things. But since I've been back, the big mantra is we need to build products. We need to build products in the open. They need to be open source first as we are building everything that we're doing, and we need to be present in the spaces in which we want to operate. And so this is the announcement that we're back to doing that.
That's great. It's good to see more companies getting back into this.
Yeah.
I work for Red Hat. We never left.
100%.
Yeah. For a bit there, it just seemed like we were the only ones in the space. I'm like, is this going to be it? But are we going to be the only ones left? But whether if that's but for the most part, it was telco use cases, right? We had some FSIs, some other enterprises using it, but for the most part, it's been telco very specific use cases, whether that's 5G core or really more for 4G
Yeah,
rather than
4G.
5G.
Yeah,
But
DNF.
then of
Yeah,
course running OpenShift on OpenStack, but now it's the other way around,
yeah.
as we just announced yesterday, I think.
I think it was yesterday, 2 days ago, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I saw Sean's. I follow as a former Red Hatter. I still follow my former my former teams. So rooting you on from the side. But yeah, I saw the announcements, and that's was it's good stuff. It's really
yeah,
it's pretty exciting to be able to look at what you guys are doing in the space and the alignment actually that I think
yeah,
a lot of the major players have now in the OpenStack space with the different product offerings and how those kind of are more complementary than competitive.
yeah. And one of the thing, uh, this podcast is separate from my work at Red Hat, but just as a side note, I've worked with Rackspace before, in customers when we were partnering all the time.
Yeah,
I hope this is an indicator that we'll be partnering more again.
we definitely will be talking a lot more.
That's great. That's great. This resurgence of OpenStack, it has been a resurgence of, like, it does feel like 2011, 2012, because I've started to see names that I thought were completely dead,
Yeah,
such as CloudStack, OpenNebula, Eucalyptus. Even
eucalyptus. Yeah,
I was shocked about that.
you're like that's still a thing. Like,
CloudStack. I know
yeah,
Citrix donated that to the Apache Foundation,
yep,
and a lot of projects that just get donated to the Apache Foundation, like whether that was like Open Office, like way back in the day by Oracle, or and some other things, like there's some projects that Red Hat's donated that just die.
yeah. They lose interest.
And that was one of the ones I thought, and I guess it's been getting some development over the last
It's
couple
still it's still
last
definitely
15 years,
being
but
developed. Yeah, cloud stack.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So, and same with Open Nebula, but like, do you think that resurgence of those projects as well has been uh uh like the same reasons, like just not just again, not just the VMware. um
probably.
yeah.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, like I think I think they're doing exactly what a lot of folks are, and they're being very vocal right now. But the I also think the repatriation efforts are helping them too, right? Because I mean they're still functional, viable products or projects, right? And they have a development team behind them, and they are contributing those lines of code into that ecosystem and environment. And so it's humming along. It may not be humming along at like the same clip as you see OpenStack and Kubernetes operating
Hmm.
at over the years, but they are still being maintained and operated.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it is. Um,
I I think it's good that they're there keeping us OpenStack guys on our toes.
honest,
'Cause,
right? Yeah,
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 I like, because back in 2012, like, it easily could have been CloudStack.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah, like,
yeah.
that we wouldn't be talking about OpenStack right now.
100%. Yeah. Oh, I mean, remember when like it's Chris Kemp, right?
Yeah.
Founded Nebula itself, right? As a company, and
Hmm.
like they had their own hardware appliances and boxes, and they had their own ecosystem and environment. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely a moment in time there where it 100% the bit could have flipped, right?
Hmm.
Cosmic ray, in
Yeah,
the multiverse, like.
yeah, yeah. Just like with Kubernetes, like, it could
Yeah,
have been Mesos. It could have been hell, it could have
totally.
been Swarm.
Yeah, Swarm actually really good. Is a good piece of software, but
Hmm.
Kubernetes came in and just did things a little differently,
Yeah.
and here we are today.
Yep, indeed. Oh, Kevin, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Before we sign off, any closing thoughts that you want to impart on the audience?
No, I just again really thankful for you having me on today, and stay tuned. I won't go on to a big monologue. I don't have anything written or anything like that, but just stay tuned. We are at Rackspace cooking up a lot of fantastic new products and capabilities. And we're really excited to be, like I said, present, relearning what it means to be a technologist in this open source ecosystem and becoming, more present in the environment. So if I was going to impart anything on the audience, it's just to stay tuned.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for tuning into the Sudo Show, where business meets open source. Until next time.